Welcome, my name is Gergely Burik. I'm the commercial lead of Gexpro Services Europe. This is our first webinar, which is going to be about total cost of ownership, and I would like to introduce my colleague, Ms. Keller, who is the CFO of Gexpro Services Europe. Anna, could you please tell us some words about yourself?
Yes, thank you, Gergely. Welcome, everyone. So I'm the CFO of Gexpro Services Europe. I'm responsible for the European operation, and due to our synergies within the organization, we are also responsible for the Chinese entity and also supporting our parent company, GS Operating LLC in the US.
So thank you, Anna, for the introduction. First of all, we would like to talk about TCO, which is total cost of ownership, where I would like to highlight that if you have a look at the price of a product, you cannot just measure the purchase price itself. However, you have to talk about also the associated costs. And it also has an effect also on the OPEX or the operational expenses, and also on hits the P&L. So if you can tell some words about that, it would be very good.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, associated costs will have or could have a direct positive or negative impact both on the P&L and the balance sheet. And we would like to start here the P&L items. What we would like to share is really the gross profit impact and the OPEX impact. And at the end of the day, it will result or impact your profitability. And that's what matters, I think, and that's why we should highlight the hidden cost and associated costs with TCO.
Yeah, especially for the items that Gexpro Services is supplying, like items which are bulk items, not the A or B parts, is that when the associated costs are much higher than the initial purchase price of an item. And if you talk about the purchase cost itself, and if you are looking for a sourcing standpoint, yes, it can be said that this purchase cost is the key factor of making purchasing decisions. However, if you have a look at the full cost, then you should consider other aspects like the procurement cost, for example, the transportation, the warehousing and storage, inventory carrying, quality control, other operational expenses, the cost of the opportunities which you miss because of concentrating on the cost elements of the full cost of the product.
Out of these costs, mainly F&D, obsolescence hit, supplier rebate and cash discount will hit the gross profit, and then all the others that you mentioned will reflect in the operational expenses.
Okay, and why is it important to take into consideration these costs? Because it has a direct P&L effect, right?
Yeah, so from a financial perspective, it's really important to take into consideration these associated so-called hidden costs, because what's really important that our customers has to have the ability to interpret and measure financials accordingly, both the balance sheet and the P&L, as we just mentioned. We need to take care of gross profit, operational expenses, and profitability. And on the balance sheet side, what is really important, the trade working capital control, which will cover AP, AR, and inventory. And of course, the cash management is going to be a key. So in order to evaluate financials properly, you have to understand the associated cost and you have to precisely measure them. And Gexpro Services, I think, can help our customers and our partners, so you, to first of all optimize your cost structure and model, and secondly optimize your operation, which is, I think, really important. If you have a stable operation, it's like a must-have in production and in distribution sector as well. So with that, Gexpro Services can assist you to utilize cost-saving initiatives and, of course, achieve your long-term strategic plans. So Gexpro Services team ultimate goal is really to increase customer satisfaction, to strengthen the partnership we had both with our suppliers and customers, and grow our businesses together within the market.
Yeah, that's what I wanted also to highlight, is that when I'm going to a customer, because I'm working on the sales side, is that I usually have a hard time to find who I should talk to, because usually the purchasing colleagues are taking care of the simple purchasing price of the item. However, all the other segments or all the other departments in a company should have a discussion about these costs, because some of the costs occur on different parts of the companies. Like, for example, the transportation cost is hitting the gross profit, while the purchasing price is the initial cost of the item. So to tell some words about the different cost elements of a part's full price, I would like to highlight some major costs which occur during the purchasing process. The first one is the procurement cost. So if you have a look into these costs, it is a very high amount if you consider a very low value item, for example, like the administration fees, the different order processing costs, sending out the orders, negotiating the terms with the suppliers, etc. So this is one item. The second one is the transportation. Transportation is also a huge player because if you consider an FCA price, for example, overseas in the United States or an FCA term in Europe, then the difference is the transportation, which includes all the taxes, the duties, and of course the cost of the freight. Also, we would like to highlight the warehousing and the storage, because warehousing and storage also plays a big role in the full cost of an item. For example, you have to rent a warehouse, you have to rent some space, etc., which you have to pay for as well. Also talk about the QC costs, like the quality control, because you have to have a quality organization and you have to be able to give good quality products to your customers. Also about the end-of-life disposal, because if a product is going obsolete or is it going to be an excess stock, then you have to write it off, which also occurs as an extra cost on your profit and loss statement. And these are the areas when Gexpro Services or other service providers can help you to optimize these costs and to be able to decrease the costs to a minimum level. One element which we left out is the inventory management, because we would like to talk about that separately. So if you're talking about the inventory, why is it important to discuss about the inventory? Why is it a hit to the P&L if you have a huge inventory?
From a financial standpoint and perspective, inventory management is extremely important because, as I mentioned previously, it could have a negative and positive impact on the P&L and balance sheet as well. Gexpro Services can help our customers to reduce financial burden of overstocking and also mitigating risk of stockouts. Gergely mentioned excess and obsolete inventory. These are the P&L elements that could really hit negatively the profitability. That's why it's really important to have the right tools, the right service provider in place who can support you to manage and improve inventory efficiency within the organization. And in terms of the operational expenses, what we didn't highlight it yet is the additional storage fee, the insurances and taxes to be paid. So overall, this methodology will help you to create and grant lean management and increase the KPIs within the organization, such as the inventory turnover. So you can free up capital, you can improve the bottom line. That's why it's really important to focus on inventory management and improve.
Yes, so talking about inventory management and inventory management methods, I would like to highlight a few options which Gexpro Services can provide as a solution and a help and a hint to decrease your inventory levels. First one is VMI or consignment stock, which is VMI is the abbreviation for vendor managed inventory, which means that the inventory stays in the property of the sales of the solutions company until you use it on your shop floor. So you can have a warehouse, a dedicated warehouse space for Gexpro Services on your site, but the inventory is going to be owned by Gexpro Services until you use it, which means it doesn't hit your P&L, and we usually invoice these items on a monthly basis, so you don't have to pay when you use it, you have to pay at the month end only. The second one is the Kanban system. We usually operate Kanban systems on site with our customers. Different technologies are there in place. So for example, we use weight scale systems, we use RFID tags, or we use standard barcode scanning two-bin systems to trigger a replenishment in our ERP system to be able to handle the inventory, the amount of inventory in our ERP. Next to that, I would like to talk about the replenishment and the different kind of reorder points. So when you set up a system, Gexpro Services goes out to a customer and analyzes the current usage, the forecast, the historical consumption of the item, and based on that, we provide you a minimum and maximum level assumption of stock which you would need to be able to run a smooth operation, to avoid stock out situations or zero stock situations. And with this forecasting method, we also keep inventory in-house at Gexpro Services premises to be able to send the products in case of any overconsumption, for example, to also balance your production processes. Another method to use is economic order quantities, for example, because Gexpro Services is not just providing the parts to one customer, but also to several other players on the market. So we can utilize economic order quantities. Economic order quantity is a formula which helps us to minimize the inventory effect of purchasing parts, and it also gives us the best cost on the market because we can aggregate the different volumes coming from different customers from the similar items. So in this case, we can have better cost on the market than if an OEM is going to a supplier directly. We can also negotiate different terms with the suppliers because of our buy power.
And that's why partnership, I think, is really important, both with the customers and suppliers, because estimating and analyzing inventory consumption and demand is really difficult, and it could be complex financially as well, and both on the operational side. So if you have the proper partnership in place and the proper communication, then it's easier to have suppliers, have customers, and at the end of the day, build strong relationships together.
So Anna, what are the highest risks and costs associated with keeping a high level of inventory?
It's going to be mainly P&L because of the storage fee, the human resources, the waste, the scrap you can generate. But what's really important is the balance sheet impact. You need to manage, control trade working capital according to your sales volume, according to your EBITDA, and review the return on the trade working capital, which contains inventory, AP and AR, and also the cash management. So that's why I think we would like to continue with the cash management.
Yeah.
It's really a key factor in the business operation.
What is cash flow, and why is it important from a financial standpoint to have a healthy cash flow situation? Or what is a healthy cash flow situation?
So in general, cash flow is really the inflow and outflow of the transactions. There are different methodologies and calculations for cash flow, but what's really important that this is not just a metric, it's a comprehensive measure of a company's financial performance, financial health, liquidity, and operational efficiency.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And positive cash flow is essential for sustainable growth and for investment and reinvesting within your business operation, and also to create superior value for your shareholders, because at the end of the day, that's what matters, I think.
And is it true that if you have a company which seems to be very good and seems to be booming on the market, you can still be in a bankruptcy situation because of your wrong cash flow?
Of course, definitely. That's why you need to take a look into the P&L, balance sheet, and also the financial metrics, because if you're looking at the cash flow situation, that speaks for itself. So if the company is in a bad situation, let's call that, or a weak situation in the market, you will see on the cash flow as well. Positive cash flow management will reflect in solvency, stability, flexibility, and resilience of your company. So if you face challenging situations within the market, within your operation, that's why you need to have a stable cash flow behind you, because it will help you guide to the path you want to go and to further improve within the market.
Yeah, I think resilience is very important, especially nowadays when we have wars around, and also we had the global pandemic a few years ago. And I would like to understand what are the major financial drivers of the cash flow. So what you should have to look at when you are considering that you would like to have a good cash flow situation.
I can only repeat myself, because it's going to be, first of all, the profitability that will directly flow into equity and cash, of course. And the other factors are going to be AP, what are your terms with your suppliers, what are your terms with your customers, so AR balance. These two need to be, I would say in a balance. Like if you have long term with your customers, you have to make sure that you have similar terms to your suppliers, because you can be a really profitable company. If your terms are not on the right path, you will lose money, timing, and liquidity. And the other thing that we talked about is going to be inventory management. A lot of money can sit in inventory, and you can waste your capital and money on inventory. That's why it's really important to take into consideration trade working capital and profitability. So Gergő, how Gexpro Services as a supply chain service provider can support our customers?
Oh, it's a good question. So talking about inventory and also cash flow, supply chain service providers like Gexpro Services can have a huge positive effect on the cash flow. For example, because these companies, for example, Gexpro Services is also a global company, so we have global presence and we are part of a bigger group, and such bigger groups have the opportunity to be able to extend the payment terms, get better terms from the suppliers, and also to have VMI programs in place with those suppliers. We have the ability to provide rebates, cash discount, and also longer terms to our customers. So when talking about the cost structure of a customer, you can see that they have A parts, B parts, and then they have their tail spend, which is the last, let's say, 20% of their total spend. However, it is fragmented to several different suppliers. And in this tail spend, they don't really have a buy power. That's where Gexpro Services can help, because we have good cooperation with such suppliers. So we can provide better terms, extended terms for these items, and the customers can work on the products which are very important to their production. Of course, our items are important too. However, they can work more on those A or B class items, which are giving the essence of their products. Talking about inventory and cash flow, we can provide optimized shipping solutions and replenishment methods to be able to decrease the inventory to the minimum level. And as we have a huge buy power at the suppliers, as I mentioned, we can provide volume discounts, rebates, and also cash discounts to our customers. And that lets them up to free up the cash. And why is free cash flow important?
Free cash flow is significant for the businesses so that they can reinvest their money and focus on other factors and areas of the business, such as CapEx investment, OpEx investment, acquisitions, or market share increase. That's why it's really an important factor to take into consideration. And reflecting back to the supplier cash discount and supplier rebate that Gergely just mentioned, this will directly impact your gross profit and your profitability. At the end of the day, that's what will matters.
So talking about inventory and also about cash flow, I would like to highlight one topic, which is obsolescence or excess inventory, because this is one topic where supply chain service providers can help the customers, because obsolescence or slow-moving inventory can hit the P&L when it should be written off after a specific period of time. And this is where we help, for example, with forecasting the obsolescence and also with having a look at constantly analyzing the slow-moving inventory, and together with the customer, we decide if we would like to, for example, in the case of a Kanban program, we would like to remove that item from the Kanban and ship it as on a per PO basis, or if we would have to stock more because of stock out situations have occurred in the past. And also this has a huge financial effect because obsolescence is directly hitting the P&L, right?
Yes, I agree. Effective controls in place and processes are really important to strengthen your free cash flow.
So as we are getting closer to the end of our discussion, I would like to summarize the key takeaways from what we discussed. The first is the part price. Because part price itself is not enough to determine the purchasing costs, because there are a lot of associated costs which seem to be hidden because they hit different levels of the P&L. Such associated costs can be the ordering cost, the quality control, the warehousing, the storage, taxes and duties. So when you are discussing about a purchasing decision, you have to take into account all these associated costs. And if you're talking about the tailor spend items, like where Gexpro Services can help, those items has the highest associated costs on a per piece basis. So this is where Gexpro Services as a service provider can help you to be able to minimize those costs and to be able to streamline your operations. So thank you, Anna, for being here with me today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
And if you would like to have more information about Gexpro Services and our solutions, please follow us on our LinkedIn page, visit our website, and also you can find our contact details in the first comment. Thank you for joining and see you on our next webinar session.